Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're exploring the invisible, high-stakes physics that literally save our lives on the road every single day. I'm honestly so excited to share this with you because, let's be real, we rarely think about what's actually happening beneath us when we drive. We just stomp on that pedal and expect the car to stop. But the journey of a brake, well, it's this incredibly fascinating story of mechanical muscle, really strange material science, and split-second digital reflexes. Okay, let's dive into this. Picture yourself driving down the highway, cruising along. Suddenly, an obstacle just appears out of nowhere. You panic, and you slam your foot onto the brake pedal. Right in that exact fraction of a second, hitting the pedal is really just the beginning of a massive chain reaction. What takes place in those next few milliseconds is a beautiful orchestration of engineering that determines whether you stop safely or just slide completely out of control. Section 1. Amplifying the driver's foot. So, inside the cabin, just pushing a pedal with your foot, that doesn't naturally generate anywhere near enough force to stop a heavy car speeding at 60 miles per hour. You need some serious mechanical help. When your foot transfers energy to the pedal, it actually activates this tiny mechanical hero inside the vacuum brake booster, called the poppet valve. This little valve shifts and separates two internal chambers, establishing a direct connection to the outside air. Suddenly, atmospheric pressure just rushes into one side of the chamber, and because the other side holds a vacuum, it creates this massive pressure difference. That atmospheric pressure literally pushes against an internal diaphragm right alongside your foot, multiplying your braking force tremendously. So it's not just you stopping the car, it's the weight of the Earth's atmosphere pitching in to help you out. Section 2. The physics of steering. Let's move to how this builds, because as we shift from that amplified force in your brake lines down to the physical wheels hitting the pavement, things start to get pretty complicated. There's this fundamental tension between your ability to stop the car and your ability to steer it. You see, the entire steering mechanism of your car depends on one very simple principle. The wheels have to be rolling without slipping. A rolling wheel actually has two distinct types of motion happening at the exact same time. There's translational velocity, that's the wheel moving forward with the car, and rotational velocity, which is the wheel spinning on its axis. Now, for perfect non-slip rolling, the sum of those two velocities right where the rubber meets the road has to be exactly zero. If your wheel stops spinning entirely because those brake pads clamp down just a bit too hard, your rotational velocity drops to zero. And without rotation, you lose all ability to steer. The car will completely ignore your steering wheel and just helplessly slide forward in a straight line. Section 3. Anti-lock braking system explained. Sliding straight into an obstacle while desperately turning the steering wheel is, well, it's a terrifying scenario. Fortunately, modern engineering came up with a brilliant technological solution. ABS acts as the ultimate supervisor for your brakes. It uses these really clever speed sensors attached to every single wheel to monitor their rotational velocity. The absolute instant those sensors detect that a wheel has stopped spinning and is about to lock up into a dangerous skid, they talk to a component called the modulator unit. This unit rapidly and partially releases the brake pad on that specific wheel. It basically allows the wheel to spin intermittently during a panic stop. And by keeping that wheel turning just a tiny bit, it restores your rotational velocity, which means you get to keep your steering control. Section 4. The 12% sweet spot. Now, restoring steering control is absolutely crucial, but it's really only half of the ABS magic. The other half involves some deeply fascinating, kind of counterintuitive material science regarding the tires themselves. Let me ask you this. How does letting go of the brakes, even for a fraction of a second, actually reduce the total distance it takes to stop? I mean, common sense would tell us that clamping the brakes as hard as possible and just skidding to a halt has to be the fastest way to stop a moving object, right? Well, actually, scratch that. Common sense is entirely wrong here, because rubber is a very complex material with some incredibly strange behaviors. It all comes down to a very specific number. 12%. When you measure the coefficient of friction between a tire and the road, perfect rolling gives you nearly zero friction. Complete 100% lockup gives you sliding friction, but the absolute peak value, literally the maximum possible grip a tire can ever have on the pavement, doesn't happen at 100% lockup. It happens at exactly a 12% slip ratio. So, modern ABS is specifically programmed to hunt for this sweet spot. The clever algorithms inside your car's computer continuously adjust and pulse the brake pressure to keep the tire slippage hovering right around that 12% mark. By doing this incredibly fast, microscopic dance exactly around this peak of friction rather than just falling into a 100% slide, ABS drastically reduces your total braking distance. Bottom line, it stops you shorter, faster, and safer.
Section 5. ESP, staying on track.
Let's zoom out a bit from the physics of an individual tire to the intelligence of the entire car as it dynamically maneuvers around a sudden obstacle. The Electronic Stability Program, or ESP, relies on a vast, highly sensitive network of sensors constantly feeling out the car's physical environment. You've got the wheel speed sensors we already talked about, plus a steering angle sensor that registers exactly what you, the driver, are trying to do. But most importantly, there's a specialized sensor that feels what the car is actually doing in physical space. And the system's central control unit is just continuously comparing these two realities, what the driver wants versus where the car is really going.
So the crucial point here is how the car realizes it's losing control in the first place. And it does this by measuring yaw rate. Yaw is simply the rotation of the vehicle relative to its vertical axis. Basically, is the car spinning out like a top? If you're turning the steering wheel sharply, but the yaw rate sensor detects the car is spinning way too much, or maybe not spinning enough, the ESP system realizes instantly that the car is skidding. And this leads to some split-second micro-narratives where ESP literally physically intervenes to save you. Let's say you swerve hard to the left to avoid a box on the road, but the car understeers. That means the front tires lose grip and you're just sliding straight forward. In milliseconds, the ESP hydraulic unit directly targets and aggressively brakes just the rear left wheel. This acts exactly like dropping an anchor on one side of the car, generating countering torque that physically pulls the nose of the car to the left, getting you back onto your intended path. Then, as you countersteer to get back in your lane, the car might oversteer, with the rear end braking away to the left. Instantly, ESP switches tactics and brakes the front left wheel, pulling the rear end back in line. It is effectively steering the car using only the brakes. Pretty wild, right? This individual wheel targeting is also essential for a subsystem called electronic braking distribution, or EBD. Imagine slamming on your brakes when your left tires are on perfectly dry asphalt, but your right tires are on slippery, wet ice. Your left tires are going to generate massive friction, violently pulling the car to the left and causing a totally uncontrollable spin. Well, EBD senses this imbalance immediately and automatically reduces the brake pressure on those high-grip left tires. It basically sacrifices a little bit of overall stopping power to keep the yaw torque perfectly balanced, ensuring your car doesn't spin out. To wrap up our explainer today, I really want to leave you with this powerful summary from our sources. Instead of starting to skid, the vehicle remains stable. Every single time you hit the brakes, this massive, invisible symphony of atmospheric pressure, strange material science, and millisecond computer calculations plays out in the background just to keep you safe. But it definitely begs a fascinating question. As our cars become fully autonomous and human reflexes are removed from the equation entirely, what new laws of physics will these algorithms have to conquer next? Thanks so much for joining me for